time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Our nerd love was strong. It's gone astray.
Hello and welcome back to the Holochronologist. I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Ben.
And we're here to talk about Light of the Jedi. Our first novel in the timeline for the Star Wars universe.
This is exciting.
I'm really excited, and this was a great book to start off on. So, where are we then? We're back.
We're still at like what 280 BBY or something like that?
Around like 230 something.
Okay.
BBY is where we're at.
Yeah. This is the first.
This is the first book.
Yeah.
So far we've only had a short story that leads into this book, so this is really the first big thing happening that we are reading, and it's very, very exciting. Let's start with a review of the book itself. No spoilers. What did you think of the book?
It was great. I didn't know what to expect going into it. It exceeded my expectations, which were already like pretty high because I've been really enjoying the Star Wars, especially the audiobooks, because they put so much production like value into them with like sound effects and music, and read by Mark Thompson, who I love. He did the Thrawn books. He did the Aftermath trilogy. He's a great orator. But yeah, I thought that the book was fantastic.
I loved it. I kept being unable to put it down until the point at which I wanted to stop reading because I A, didn't want it to end, and B, was very concerned about the livelihoods of some of the characters. Which is just to say, Charles Soule did great at getting us to be attached to so many different characters and having there's some intertwined storylines all happening that are connected, and it's beautifully done. I loved it. It was so good. He did a
fantastic job. I mean, there's a reason that it's number one on the bestsellers chart right now.
It's amazing.
Super well written, and he does a really great job, like you said, getting you to like really care for these characters, and also having every character feel unique. Does some really interesting things with Jedi. Kind of brings back that like mystical aspect of them, makes them more like the like wizards that we thought that they were. Just hearing Owen Lars talk about Obi-Wan as that old wizard in the desert, this gives you that feeling of magic space wizards again.
You get to see a lot more ways to use the Force than just in combat. I highly recommend this book. Just even if you don't know anything about Star Wars, it will feel like you've been like sucker punched in the heart in the beginning. I think
those first chapters.
Just read it. Be prepared for some emotions. It's such a strong start, and it's so good. I highly recommend it.
This definitely goes on the definitely worth a read or listen. It's very good.
Okay. So there is our review, sans spoilers. Now, let's try...
Serif spoilers.
If you're listening to this and you want to read this book, but you haven't yet, and you don't want to be spoiled about what happens, I'm going to say right now you should stop listening, go, get this book, read it, and then come back.
Or listen to it.
Go... take in this book however you want, and then come on back and listen to what we have to say about it, because we are definitely going to give some spoilers. If you don't mind that, then you can keep listening. Alrighty then, we're gonna start looking at what happens in this book. So the main thing that's going on is there is, as we talked about in the previous episode with the short story, there was a mass casualty event in the Hetzel system, and in the book we get to find out what that is. It starts, actually, with the
cause.
The cause of the event, which is a ship. The Legacy Run is going through hyperspace. It's carrying passengers, and all of a sudden, there's something in the middle of hyperspace, which shouldn't be possible. There just shouldn't be there. That's not how hyperspace works.
How well written this is. There was so much foreshadowing in like the first half of this chapter to exactly what was going to happen. From Hedda Cassett.
Yep.
She, is going through, and she's like literally looking out a viewport, and she's like, when I die, I want to die seeing something that I've never seen before. And then literally that happens 5 seconds later.
Yep. That's the first punch to the heart. Yeah. And so she manages to avoid it, which is incredible. I loved everything we learned about hyperspace because I'm a nerd. I'm a space and physics nerd. And so learning about what hyperspace is in the Star Wars universe is so cool. So, like, you're in a different place.
It's weird because they explain it as, like, you get, like, a personal wormhole almost.
Yeah, so you're
They also describe that that's not necessarily true. You're
in a different plane of existence. Hyperspace, the way that the Republic knows it and most people know it, is basically you're in a totally different plane. And so literally when you're in hyperspace, you're in a new place entirely, which is crazy. And it's super cool. So then you have the past, which is how the Nihil are getting around. They can just come from wherever and just pop in.
But it's still using hyperspace. That's, like, the weird thing.
Yeah.
So it's not a personalized wormhole. That's just the Republic's understanding of it?
They have the prospectors like you would be mining, but instead they're looking for these pathways through space. I think they're set roads through space. Like we were talking about space roads,
right.
Remember?
Yeah, space roads.
There's only so many they know to get out to the Outer Rim because
right.
It hasn't been explored as much. I think it is like they're there, they exist, and it's just like how things are timed, I guess, that you wouldn't run into anything else.
That's why they need those, like, Navi computers that calculate all that stuff. Like Han Solo talks about in episode 4 when he's, calculating the jump to light speed, and he's like, you don't want me blasting us straight through a star. And that's why it takes time to do those jumps. But anyway, so they're in this, they're in the Legacy run, and there's something in the hyperlane. So Hedda Cassett is able to, like, veer off and dodge it, but the ship is so old that it just kind of tears itself apart. So the last thing that she does is basically seal off all of the these huge cargo compartments full of people so that they're, like, airtight, and so that hopefully she saves them. The ship basically cracks apart and explodes and launches these things out of hyperspace.
Yeah.
But not all at once, which is what causes this, what did they call it? The first... Emergence.
Just the entire ship is falling apart, and it is traveling through hyperspace. Most of it comes out in the Hetzel system, which is the first, like, that's what's causing the mass casualty. That's the first big part of this.
Which is where we meet our next character who has hopes and dreams and aspirations and then immediately dies.
Yep, the second punch to the heart, which is just such a strong way to start this book.
I think that it sets the, like, scale and tone that, one, we're getting introduced to all of these new characters, and that just because a character appears and is set up as a main character doesn't mean that they're going to last the whole book. It doesn't mean that just because a character is important that they're safe, which I think is a really great setup, because I remember reading a lot of the old EU books, particularly Death Troopers, which was this cool, like, zombie novel in Star Wars, but the issue was Han Solo showed up. Yeah. And you know that Han Solo's not going to turn into a zombie because he's Han Solo. It ruins the stakes of the book, and it ruins the kind of tension, because you know what characters are going to live and going to die. Whereas this book, right off the bat, we're meeting new characters who are immediately vulnerable and aren't given, like, plot armor, which I think is a huge deal.
There were points in this book where I wanted to stop reading because I was afraid that characters I cared about were gonna die, and, like, I just didn't want it to happen because I was invested, but I knew any one of them could just die, because it's not like we know they show up in something later because this is so far back.
Right. I think there's only 2 characters that are mentioned in the book that we know are, like, safe.
Oh yeah, we know Yoda's safe.
That's Yoda and Yariel Poof.
It's like, okay, Yoda does have plot armor. He exists. Mm-hmm. So he's fine. So in the Hetzel system, the Jedi were on the Third Horizon, mm-hmm. coming back from the Starlight Beacon.
Looking back to the end of our last episode, which was the short story.
They are all nearby, luckily, and go into action to try to help. We have Jedi going to the planet, trying to help people however they can. You have them in the air, trying to figure out how to stop these pieces.
Really cool ships.
Yeah, we have the long beams, which are the Republic long beams.
Which are basically, like, super hyper modular spaceships. Mm-hmm. They can be outfitted for combat, outfitted for cargo.
It calls them the workhorses of the Republic, so they are their new set of ships that can be used for pretty much anything, depending on what parts you have attached to it. And then we also get the Jedi Vectors.
Which are neat. They're basically, like, Force and lightsaber-powered starships.
Yeah.
That are, like, super
cool.
thin and super spindly and, like, really fast. and like all of their different systems are powered by like using your lightsaber as a key to ensure that only a Jedi will be piloting them.
It's their weapons array unlocks. You need your lightsaber to be against it as the key to unlock your weapons. And what's interesting then is your weapons array.
It's always the color of your lightsaber.
Yeah, it's the color of your lightsaber, which is super cool.
It's just a good aesthetic that, like, everything a Jedi does is tied to, like, their saber color. Oh, we also find out about, like, what can make a white lightsaber crystal. Was that, Jorah Malli's?
I think so.
It talks about how she found a, like, Sith crystal, which, as we know, like, a Sith crystal is a, like, lightsaber, is like a Jedi crystal that's been corrupted and bled to turn red. The white crystal is almost the opposite of it. She basically, like, found a Sith crystal and, like, cured it and, like, nursed it back to being a light side crystal, which turned it into a white crystal, which is pretty neat.
So, yeah, they're doing lots of things, and they're managing to... Oh, we see Joss and Pika again, right?
Yep,
they're in a long beam.
They're in a long beam, and they actually fly out with the vectors to go and help clear some of the debris.
Yep, so they're about to try to basically shoot down a piece of debris to stop it from hitting one of the moons.
And then your boy Buryaga.
Oh, Buryaga! I love him so much. He is a Wookiee Jedi Padawan, and I love him. He is very sensitive to emotions. So as we said, Jedi in this are very unique while still like having those quintessential Jedi qualities about them. And so in this, you get to see their different skill sets. And, you know, some Jedi can do one thing, some Jedi can do the other, some are better at this or that. And so Buryaga is really good at sensing emotions and feelings of people. And he just starts in their Jedi, like, comm system between all of them is just, like,
because
they're
about to shoot down this giant piece of what they think is space debris.
Yeah,
and Buryaga's like, stop.
He starts yelling, and it's like... So for most of them, they're just hearing, like, Wookiee just like, roar. That's a bad Wookiee impression. There you go. They're just hearing that, and they don't know what's going on, except for his master, who she learned Shrirook just so she could be his master. It's so cute. I just love that fact. And it's because he sensed that there was people in there, and so they were able to not shoot it down, and they had to think of a new plan.
But that posed a new problem, because... There are bits of this debris that are, like, headed towards planets that are, like, hyper-populated planets and moons, and now they can't just shoot them and destroy them because they're also full of people. It's like the trolley problem, but taken to the extreme.
Yep, and their goal is to keep everyone alive. They stop it from hitting that moon, and they save all the people in that cargo.
And what's cool is the non-Jedi characters come up with the solution. Joss and Pika come up with this idea of using these, like, super fine cables to, like, the Jedi slow down the thing enough so that they can launch these, like, really powerful cables to grab it, and then they reverse thrusters to slow it down to a stop so that it doesn't collide with the moon and it doesn't kill everybody, which is great.
So there's something flying towards one of the stars. That's fine. There's no planet in the star. Great. Nope. Because we'll remember from our first chapter.
It's a canister of liquid Tabana.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it's used as hyperfuel. It's used in blaster technology. It's just basically a highly volatile substance that as soon as it hits the star is going to cause it to go, like, crazy supernova and just destroy everything in the system.
It's not how supernovas work.
Okay,
it's fine.
I'm sorry.
But it would expand greatly.
Yes.
And explode. And so the Jedi...
And the Jedi who finds this out is basically the super Jedi of this... Well, the lead Jedi of the story. She kind of becomes the lead of our interaction with the Jedi, I guess. Which is Avar Kriss. And she sees the Force as, like, a big song, and she also does this, like, meditation thing that, like, links all of the Jedi's minds together, and she's the one who hears this kind of discordant melody in her interaction with the Force, which allows her to point to seeing this Tabana canister about to hit the sun. And so she links all the Jedi together, and together they're able to, like, mass amplify each other's Force powers to push the canister out of the way.
Jedi from all over, so they're all straining to do the push to get it out, and they lose some Jedis because they lose focus on flying their vectors and crash into each other.
Some just have, like, aneurysms.
Yes,
it's nuts.
Some pass out, and Avar Kriss can feel Jedi from across the entire galaxy contributing, and she says she can feel Master Yoda and his younglings
on Ilum. right? Yeah.
All focusing in on it, which is, even in this, Yoda is just known as, like, a super powerful Jedi.
Yeah.
Because there are times where they're like, I don't know if Jedi could do it. If one of them could, it'd be, like, Master Yoda, but, like, I can't do this. So it's like, he's still known as, like, powerful guy, which is
for
great.
Sure.
Love Yoda.
I'm excited to see, like, peak Yoda at some point.
Peak Yoda.
Peak Yoda.
Young Yoda getting around.
This was really interesting because it's the first time that we kind of, like... It's the first time that I've ever seen a Star Wars piece of media that was very, like, disaster movie-esque, which was cool. And then,
well, it depends on which part of the book. So the book is kind of split into 3 parts.
That's true. I mean, this first part is like full disaster movie.
They each have a different feel to them, I think. And the first part is definitely disaster movie. First part is just them dealing with the strikes coming into the Hetzel system. And then in the second part, we see more of these emergencies happening in different parts of the galaxy, you know, towards the Outer Rim, near Hetzel system somewhat, but coming out of hyperspace, so no one knows they're coming until they pop out of hyperspace, and they could be right next to you.
Yeah.
Or it could be a bit of time, and you can try to figure out how to get stuff off. So that happens in more planets.
Almost immediately, we get to kind of see the opposite of the Hetzel system, where the Jedi came and were able to save the day. We immediately after that see the flip side of these things come out further down the hyperline and just hit this planet in the Outer Rim and, like, wipe out, like, the major cities and just destroy, like, half the population or something like that.
And it keeps happening, and they're trying to figure out, why is this happening? It, you know, goes to the Republic, and the Chancellor shuts down the hyperlanes. And it's interesting because we also see some of the politics here that I think we see reflected in modern day things as well, where, like, you have the senator saying, oh, but the outer, like, they need supplies, and if you close these hyperlanes, like, they can't get supplies. It's interesting to see, like, the debate between, like, we need to open hyperspace, but also it's not safe, and so we don't want this to happen again, and trying to see, it's really interesting, a bit of, it's got politics without being about politics, which I find extremely boring, just, like, straight, if it's about politics. Come on, everybody, with the prequels. All that trade... all the trade disputes. It's not fun.
And then, this handled it in a really interesting way. And then basically Lina So tasks the Jedi with the kind of second arc of the book, which is find out what happened so that A, we can start predicting where these emergencies are going to occur, and B, so we can stop something like this from ever happening again. That's when, I believe, Avar Kriss and Elzar Mann kind of link up on going on this kind of, like, hunt for what happened.
Yeah.
And we start learning about the cool space pirates. Cool space pirates.
Cool space pirates!
Yeah, let's talk about the Nihil.
The Nihil.
So they're just super interesting because they're kind of like, I want to call it like Mad Max in space.
Oh, yeah, because they just take, like, scavenged wreckage and, like, put it together into things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the Mad Max.
And they all wear masks, and they have this really cool, like, culture of, they call it, like, the rule of 3, is that correct? Or the rule of 3?
Yeah.
Where you've got this one guy, and their nomenclature for everything is based off of the storm.
You have Martian Rowe as the Eye, who provides the pass, which is how they get around. And then underneath him, you have your 3 Tempest runners. So Tempest is, like, the biggest thing, because that's a huge storm, right? And each Tempest runner...
Well, and that is Kassav, Lorna D, and Panea.
And then each Tempest runner has storms... and each storm has clouds underneath them.
And then
strikes underneath clouds.
And they also have this, like, culture of, like, you know, it's very cutthroat. The way that you rise up is by, like, stabbing your other guys in the back and by, like, bringing in bigger, like, pirate hauls.
It's just full madness.
But if you mess up at all, someone has to pay for it. So, like, our first interaction with them is they just took advantage, kind of one of these... in the wake of one of these emergencies, there was this one, like, company that was like, we're going to pack all of our people up and leave planet so that they'll be safe from these emergencies.
Yeah,
And then these pirates, led by Panea, so it was his Tempest, come out and, like, just totally destroy them. And they're known throughout the, like, Outer Rim, these Nihil, as, like, no one survives the Nihil. They have this, like, secret, like, asteroid base. And... they're like, we were able to steal everything from 5 out of the 6 ships or whatever, but the 6th ship got destroyed before we were able to loot from it. Whose fault was that?
And the person whose fault it was already had died in the fighting, and they're like, okay, well, who was responsible for her that messed up?
Exactly. And then
so
this one cloud is like, our 6 surviving crewmates, like, come on, everybody else died, it's just us left. And they're like, someone has to be punished, so you choose one of them and we'll throw them out into space.
They're terrible people is what it is.
But they have the coolest way of getting around hyperspace. And what I like is that they have, like, I like it when cultures have different technology that allows them to, like, navigate the universe. So, like, the Republic uses, you know, hyperlanes. The Chiss, which we'll talk about much later on, they use skywalkers. And now the Nihil have these paths, which are, like, webs that weave between hyperlanes that allow them to do these, like, really short jumps and, like, get through to places that should not be able to be gotten to through hyperspace. But they are able to do that, and so that's why they're kind of like the nightmare of the Outer Rim. So the Nihil are getting these hyperlanes from this old woman.
Marie or Mary or...
I think it was Mari.
Mari?
Mari.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it was Mari Senteka.
As I said, I read it, so I have whatever pronunciation is in my head. Ben listens to the audiobook, so he has whatever pronunciation.
I have the official canon Star Wars pronunciation.
Well, so here's the thing. I saw a tweet about this, actually.
Really?
Fun times. Somebody had asked the author, Charles Soule, like, how do you feel about the interpretation by the audiobook, and do you have any, like, say, or is it purely creative license? And he was like, it's purely creative license. Once they have the book, like, what they do with it is up to them. From pronunciations to if they give accents, like, they try to do it obviously based off of the character that I put into the book, but it is the reader's choice. So some of the pronunciations, I guess, are canon because of
Mark Thompson,
whatever he chose. But that is to say, you know, it could, if it's ever said a different time, it could be said differently. Sure, we can go with Mari.
Cool.
Sounds more spacey than
Marie.
Marie. So Mari Santeka.
Yep. And she's basically ancient, kept alive by, like, as many healing technologies are known to the galaxy at the time, by Martian Rowe. And she, like, I think that she's Force sensitive or something, because she has, like, this really weird magical ability. But yeah, she basically can finds these paths for Martian, and then Martian gives them out to his Tempest Runners, because he actually doesn't have, like, any political power in the Nihil at this point, and he basically is using this as his way of kind of maintaining some sort of safety and control over them.
Also, he's just using Mari. She thinks she's, like, giving him pass that he's selling to the government or whatever. Like, she does not know that these are being used to just wreak havoc.
For piracy, yeah.
Like,
she thinks that, like, she thinks that she's still a prospector finding hyperlanes with, like, her family. So she's giving Martian these paths, and then Martian instructs her to find out where these emergences will occur before they happen. And she's able to do that. And so they start being able to essentially hold planets hostage. Not exactly hostage, but they can, like, pop into a system and say, we know that an emergency is about to happen. Give us money and we'll destroy it. Or we'll let it happen and you'll die.
Well, that wasn't the plan. That was just Kassav's plan.
That's true. But I mean, that's why Martian gave them.
Yeah, but part of the plan was also, like, where's the flight recorder gonna come out? So, because all ships, like in our worlds, ships have their black box. So they have a flight recorder that's gonna say everything that was happening on all the data it has on the ship, and so they could work backwards and figure out what happened. And the Nihil want it because they know it was one of their ships that was in the hyperlane.
Their ship in the hyperlane is what caused the Legacy's run to crash. And then the Republic at this point found a survivor who was a young boy named Serge, who was, like, hacking the bridge of the Legacy run, and basically let them know it was a ship and something was in the hyperlane, and I don't know what was going on, but I hacked it and I saw it, and that's how they know, okay, so this was caused by a ship in a hyperlane having to, like, avoid a collision, so we have to find that black box.
Can we talk about how we learned that from the little boy? Because it's That party is me. So, there's a party for all the survivors from section that had the people that all the Jedi had saved. So, Joss and Pika are there. A lot of the Jedi that were on that mission were there.
Drunk Joss is so funny.
Yeah, there's food, there's drink. Joss is drinking. They're having a great time.
Joss is like, did y'all know that you were all gonna die and we were gonna shoot you until Buryaga said not to? Isn't that funny? We were gonna kill you. And then they're like, thanks, I guess.
So they're there, and I put a note in my book because I was like, Buryaga is me at parties. He's uncomfortable. He'd rather be out, like, doing Jedi things. He doesn't see the point of this party in the first place, but it is to, like, honor the people that they saved, and, like, those people want to meet the people that saved them. And so they're there, and he's like, I can't talk to anybody because they don't understand me. Because, again,
I'm a Wookiee.
He's a Wookiee. So no one understands him except his master, who's, you know, schmoozing with other people. Because one of their secret goals also is to learn if anybody knows anything that happened that caused the Legacy Run's crash. That was one of their, like, side missions. But he's like, I can't talk. No one understands me. I can't talk to them. So he just goes to the food table. And it's just like, I'm going to eat some food. Because at least then I have something to do with my hands and mouth. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
People won't talk to me if I'm eating.
I'm like, Buryaga is me. He's me. And then he sees this, like, sad-looking boy in the corner. And so he goes over and talks to him, and that's the kid who... It's like a 10-year-old who had sliced it.
Again, great foreshadowing, because at the very beginning, Captain Hedda talks to him about how he needs to stop slicing into their, like, systems to, like, try to find, like,
the
rated
adult
R
movies.
Yeah.
And so that's why he ended up slicing... He was trying to slice it so he could, like, put a movie on the command screens.
As a joke.
But then he saw this. So Burry still can't talk. He makes Wookiee sounds to say, like, oh, my name is this. But he's also using gestures. And again, just this empathetic way about him because he's really good at sensing feelings. And he's able to just comfort this child. This child tells him his name. And, you know, he just reaches out and, like, calms him. And he hugs him. And this kid just, like, starts crying in his arms because he made it out. But his parents were in a different section of the thing, so he doesn't know, like, they could still be in hyperspace, they could be dead, he doesn't know. And so Buryaga just comforts him, and then the kid is like, this is what I saw.
The kid's like, this is my fault. I hacked the system and it broke. And,
guilty.
And Buryaga's like, that's 100% not how that works.
Yeah.
You're okay. I'm gonna call my master over because you should tell her this.
And so that is how they first know, and then... the Republic ends up, because they have a brilliant engineer.
Yeah.
Comes up with an array of Navi droids, like 57,000, I think, is the number he gets. He wishes it was more. Which
are provided by the other Sentekas, because they go to the Jedi go to the Sentekas because they have the greatest understanding of hyperspace. They run the greatest, like, prospector guilds, I guess.
And yes, related to Mari.
Mm-hmm.
And, in fact, after we meet the Sentekas, they say, like, do you think she's still alive? Could this be her? And they're like, well, I hope for her sake she's not alive, like, because it's been so long. So they sort of know that
they know about Mari. They don't know where she is or whether or not... They don't know, like, what happened to her, but for some reason they lost her.
When talking about how it's not possible for something else to be in the hyperlane, they know that there is this other thing, that it could be... past coming from Mari, even though they don't know if she's still alive, they don't know where she is. So when they're talking to the Jedi, even one of the Jedi can, like, sense that they're lying somewhat, but, like, other than that, they're being super truthful. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
They just think maybe it could be.
They're withholding truth. They're not lying.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do want to help, so they do donate a bunch of these droids and these droids are essentially like they're using them as, like, a render farm to basically
run through simulations
on where all of this is how they're trying to come up with where the emergences will be, because they don't have someone who can just do that with their mind.
So the array goes through three things, basically. It goes through all of the ones from the Hetzel system, which is where this engineer is originally from. So he was, like, there at the beginning. And then it moves on to a simulation of all the emergencies that have happened so far outside of the Hetzel system, the rest of the ones that they've recorded. So that is pretty basic, is a light way to say that, because it still takes a lot of power.
Yep.
But so they run those two simulations to finally do the third one,
which is where the future ones will happen based
Yes.
off of the information that they gathered from where the other ones did happen.
That's the important part. That is where they're hoping they can find where all these other ones will be so that they can also find the flight recorder and keep planets safe. I really liked the stuff we learned about the Force when it came to this array going on board. So the only problem is when you have a lot of computers working, they produce a lot of heat.
And they're trying to run Crisis on ultra settings on like a 30-year-old computer.
So yeah, these droids are getting hot. There's some other ones around to try to put coolant on, but it's still getting hotter and hotter and hotter.
They're losing them, they're exploding.
Yeah.
And they're not even done simulating the Hetzel system once at this point.
And the engineer doesn't know how to do it, but the Jedi who are there, because there's a bunch of important people there to see it go on.
Yep, which again is Avar Kriss and Elzar Mann.
Yeah,
again.
so the two of them, they sense that he's the panic coming off of him, and they go to see how they can help, and part of it is just calming him down so he can, figure out how to help. Elzar Mann, who we've learned throughout this book, likes to just try new things with the Force and use it in different ways. So his idea is he just sits down and starts to meditate, and he tries to basically push the heat up away from the droids and into the sky. And Avar joins him, and they're both just trying to push the hot air up and all that moisture together until basically nature takes effect and the water comes down into rain. And they're successful, which is crazy. And
it's cool.
Going into this, he was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Theoretically, it's sound and it should work, but I don't know if it's gonna work. But
it's cool.
It's so cool
because Elzar Mann is as described, he likes using the Force in different ways, and that's why he's not a master at this point. Is because the Jedi are like, you should be more conventional, and he's like, but I just want to learn and expand on our knowledge of the Force. And the best way to do that is just try different things all the time. He's like a scientist Jedi.
So good, I love it.
And so they speed up the water cycle.
So then they're able to figure it out. They start finding it. They go to get the flight recorder. They meet one of the Nihils.
Yeah, Lorna
and
D is there.
They have a bit of a fight, but they get the flight recorder, and now they have all the data on her ship. They have data on another one of the ships, and they're starting to figure out these people keep popping up and causing trouble, and once they get the flight recorder, sure enough, oh hey, it's one of their ships as well. So now we know they are ultimately the bad people.
Turns out Nihil big bad. On this Jedi outpost, I can't remember the name of the planet, but we've got the characters Porter Engel, Indira, Loden Greatstorm, and his apprentice Bell.
And most importantly, you're forgetting the last
Ember
member.
Dog?
Yes.
So they're on this outpost planet. Bell's just training, and it's supposed to be kind of like a cushy job, I guess. On this planet, there's these ex-noble family who decide to go and start farming, and they become a target of the Nihil because the Nihil are going to capture them and ransom them for a bucket of money. And the government there doesn't want to get the protective police don't want to get involved because the Nihil are these big scary things and nobody survives them. So they call the Jedi and ask the Jedi to help. So the Jedi go in and help. There's this big chase after the Nihil grab the family, and the Jedi are able to rescue 3 out of 4 of the family members, but Loden Greatstorm ends up stuck on the Nihil ship with the father, and when Lorna D shows up with her big spaceship to rectify the situation, and so he gets captured.
There we go. That's that summation.
I can't believe we're only spending 2 minutes on Loden Greatstorm.
Well, I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time on him in the future.
I hope so.
There's gonna that'll be the next book. Right. Because he is taken by the Nihil, and Marsh Monroe just wanted a Jedi to be able to do this. His master plan, hey, guess what? He's just trying to use the Nihil. He's been setting them up. He set up Lorna D at getting the flight recorder.
He set up Kosov to get in trouble with the Republic.
Yep. So he's setting them up to cause problems amongst themselves so that he can be the power that saves the Nihil, so that they'll be under his control more, so that he has power over it. Because he wants revenge.
He's got some issue with the Jedi.
He has an issue with the Jedi, which is why he was like, it doesn't even matter which Jedi it was. He just wanted a Jedi.
which freaks out Lorna D, because
Yeah.
Lorna D brings him the father of this ex-noble family
And he just kills him.
and Loden Greatstorm, and she's like, we only got one of the family members, how are we going to make a profit here? And he's like, oh, I this was never about that family.
I just wanted the Jedi.
I just wanted the Jedi. He kills the father and takes Loden's lightsaber and is like, I've always wanted one of these. Then he also sets up Kazov to go and fight the High Republic. Basically, the Republic finds the black box. They figure out where the Nihil are located and where their base is, and so they go there. And Marchion Ro is like, hey, Kazov, there's only going to be like one Republic ship, and they have the black box, so go there and take it from them. And so Kazov's like, this will be easy. Turns out, not so much. The entire Republic force is there with an entire, like, crew of Jedi and Vectors, and there's this big space battle. Kazov realizes that he's been set up, and he's calling Marchion Ro, and he's like, give me a path out of here. They get their paths directly sent from Marchion Ro to their, like, hyperdrives, so they never learn what the paths are. It's always, like, done outside of their own hands. And Marchion Ro's like, don't worry, I'll save you. And he gives this big speech about how, like, we are all the Nihil, and you guys will never lose. And then he starts, like, making them do all of these, like, micro jumps, where they're basically, like, stutter teleporting through space in, like, suicide explosion kamikaze runs. And Kosov's like, no, this is not what I want. This is wrong. I'm gonna die. You know, we have to stop this. By the time he realizes what's wrong, his ship is already getting boarded by the inhabitants of that planet that he caused major issues with earlier, because he was trying to do that ransom of the planet, and he messed up and ended up, he took their money and said that he would destroy the emergence, and then miscalculated, and the emergence happened and destroyed, like, a big city on the planet or something.
And oopsie, it's a planet that is very predatory, so bad choice.
Exactly. And I can't remember the name of the planet, but they come with the High Republic to come take on Kasov, because they know that he's going to be here. The governor of that planet kills him herself, which is pretty cool.
So one of the problems, though, so this fight, the Republic ends up winning. The problem is a lot of people think this is the end.
They think that was
Nihil.
all of the Nihil, because they never knew of any other Nihil members other than Kasov, and they saw him there, they killed him there, and there were still a bunch of ships there because it was this whole Tempest. And so now Marchion Ro, he also shows this to the rest of the Nihil, and he's like, look what Kasov did. He wouldn't go down without fighting. You know, his Tempest was resulting to suicide runs and everything because they were dying for what we believe in, and what we believe in is utter and total freedom.
He's trying to make them fanatics and stand behind him, not just their, like, old pirate code.
Yeah. But to become, like, actually, like, super militant, fanatical to his cause of like freedom and galactic control.
Yeah.
And then he talks about his, you know, he basically gives them this big speech about how, you know, we're going to take over the Republic because we can go anywhere with our paths, and if we fight like Kasov did, then, you know, we will destroy the Republic and we will be the new rulers.
And that is gonna be continued in another book.
Should we talk about Elzar Mann's vision real quick to wrap everything up?
Sure.
So at the very end of the book, you know, the Republic thinks that they're in a really good spot. You know, the Starlight Beacon is finished. The Nihil they believe to be destroyed. I think that they think that they've fixed all of the emergencies, and that they don't think it will ever happen again because the Nihil are gone. And then Elzar Mann has this, like, big vision that just hits him, where all of these Jedi are dying and they're terrified of something that's coming, and they don't know what it is.
Sense the fear. That's
the big thing. And he's getting, like, a nosebleed, and, like, it hurts. So that's the end of the book. So I guess now we'll move into, like, I guess theory crafting. I think Elzar Mann's gonna, like, turn to the dark side. Every aspect of his character hints towards that. Mm-hmm. He's fine experimenting with new ways of using the Force. That generally leads to, like, oh, look, I learned how to do lightning. Isn't that cool? Oh, whoops, I killed 30 people, you know? Yeah. And he also now has this fear of what's going to happen in the future. Like, he's kind of, like, almost like Anakin. Really wish that we could have touched on Greatstorm more and those characters, because I thought that whole scene was a really... That whole stuff with the Jedi Outpost was really cool. But you're right, it is kind of a side plot to set up the next major plot, which is they're going to have to get Greatstorm back. I guess we should mention that, like, Bell was going to be made a Jedi Knight by Great Storm for his actions during this chase.
He doesn't want to until
Great Storm can be there with him, and so I believe Indira takes him on as her apprentice.
Indira was gonna take him on until they could find like a different person, because they all think he's dead.
Right. But Bell's not giving up on him.
Bell doesn't think Great Storm's dead, and
so Indira's like an interim master for Bell. So that's the book. It was awesome.
It ends ends on the Starlight Beacon, just like we started with our short story. But here it is. This is the opening. Oh, it's so cool. The moment they all the Jedi take their lightsabers
out at once,
and it lights the beacon. And so the thing with the beacon is it's going to be sending out a signal constantly. So if people are in the Outer Rim,
it's
if
like
they're
made
lost,
out of a metal that's like conductive to signals or something.
Yeah, and it's also going to help them get better communication relays out into the Outer Rim, so it's easier to communicate between there and the core worlds. And
yeah, it ends on this like super high note,
except
with this
for
undercurrent of like something bad's about to happen.
Yeah,
which is really cool. The whole structure of the book is really well done. I loved all the characters. I really liked there was this cool Nautilin captain in the very beginning who dies saving like 7 people or something on this crew from from the Hetzel emergence.
It's time for Wikipedia.
Whoa!
So we are on a random page of Wikipedia. We have Alina, is how I'm going to say that. So it's a language. It's the primary language, one of the primary languages of Aline. And so people on Aline speak it, and we know apparently C-3PO can speak it because they encountered it on a mission to Aline. There are some examples here. Do we want to try to say them?
Oh boy, we can.
Okay. Hero de Tripo Pan Republic.
Heroes of the Republic?
Heroes, we are from the Republic.
Okay.
I think it's fitting because it's very similar to the "We Are the Republic," which was the echoing phrase throughout this book.
That is their "This is the way." Sufazi manchucho, makti poshni kana do tip tip.
Welcome to our disaster. Glad you could come.
That's really good.
It's so funny. I love it.
I don't know why, but I decided to read that kind of like how I would imagine Jabba the Hutt saying it.
Yeah, you kind of did.
It felt like it worked.
Awesome.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
So that's our whoopsie Wikipedia of the episode. You do anything fun Star Warsy lately?
I read this book.
Yeah, that's.
I talked about it with one of the students in my pre-K class.
That's good.
Because I was sharing some of the different ways you can use the Force. Because we've been talking about rain and clouds, and so I was saying, because he loves Star Wars, so I was like, the Jedi's like did the whole rain process, and so it was very fun to talk about that. What about you?
I am very close to 100%ing Jedi Fallen Order. I've beaten the game before, but I have 100% every planet, but there is one plant on. I don't want to do spoilers for that in this episode because we're not talking about Jedi Fallen Order yet. But one plant on one of the planets I have to get, and one lightsaber part at one of the stations that I have to go to, and I think I know where it is. So yeah, I'm excited to have that done, and I've been playing a lot of Star Wars Squadrons.
All right, so that does it for this week's episode of The Holochronologist.
Thank you for listening.
I'd like to thank the Thundering Asteroids for our intro and outro song, which is Frack Off.
I'd like to thank Charles Soule for writing this awesome book, and Mark Thompson for reading it to me.
So you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HolochronCast.
And on YouTube and Facebook, we are The Holochronologist.
And you can find us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts under Holochronologist.
And drop us an email. Say hi, connect, holochronologist@gmail.com.
Correct. Awesome. See you next time on our journey.
Thanks for listening.
You're not the droid I'm looking for. I'm fracking through.
I saluted the mic.
We are the Republic.